Answered in Kind 41. A warm invitation. The path to awakening does not look the same for everyone, not by a long shot. Any attempt to standardize it, to domesticate it into a single sequence of steps or sanctioned experiences, immediately betrays a misunderstanding of its nature. There are those who have encountered realities that were never recorded in any scripture, never annotated in any philosophy, never safely packaged for transmission. They are experiences so vast, so intimate, so unmediated, that to attempt to compress them into language would feel like a kind of sacrilege, not because they are forbidden, but because they are incommensurable. Language fractures under their weight. And yet, these experiences do not stand outside the human story. They stand at its heart. There is indeed a fountain of youth, not as a mythic spring hidden in some unreachable geography, but as an immediacy so close it is often overlooked. It is nearer than effort, nearer than thought, closer than breath. It is that indwelling presence, the living intelligence that animates, perceives, and knows itself through innumerable vantage points. Infinity, gazing upon itself through infinite lenses. When this presence is exiled, when it is declared distant, external, inaccessible, suffering inevitably follows. For separation, once believed, becomes experiential. The universe is exquisitely obedient in this regard. It does not argue with belief. It reflects it. It mirrors faithfully whatever stance consciousness adopts toward itself. To stand before a mirror wishing to see a smile, one cannot wait for the mirror to initiate it. The gesture must arise first. The reflection follows. So too with peace, with love, with mercy. The field responds to the posture of the perceiver. There are many who are genuinely radiant beings, carriers of light, sincerity, devotion, yet whose expressions are subtly distorted by fears they did not originate. These fears were inherited, inhaled, normalized. They were presented as virtue. And so concern becomes tinged with dread. Care becomes surveillance. Guidance becomes judgment. In such a state, one may look upon another and believe they see guilt, error, or misalignment. And instead of offering a hand, a question, or a spacious silence, the response becomes an ultimatum, a warning, a threat clothed as righteousness. Yet fear has never healed fear. Condemnation has never corrected misunderstanding. It has only driven it underground, where it calcifies. Much of what is spoken about punishment and exile is not as clearly delineated as many assume. But even if it were rendered with precision, the deeper issue would remain unchanged. Consciousness moves toward whatever it contemplates. Attention is not neutral. Where focus abides, experience consolidates. Ask, and you will receive. Ask, and be surrounded by your answer. Not because a distant authority grants or withholds, but because awareness gathers itself around its chosen object. Listen carefully to what is most often spoken. Rarely is it patience. Rarely is it mercy. Rarely is it understanding. More often, it is warning, suspicion, correction. But if the fundamental nature of reality is love, unbounded, inexhaustible, what does it mean to anchor one's vision elsewhere? To see another as separate is already to step into illusion, the illusion of separation. Where exactly does one consciousness end and another begin? If awareness is confined to a single body, a single biography, a single role, then something vast has been forfeited. Identity has been mistaken for essence. So often, systems of belief teach fear without teaching mastery of the mind. They teach literalism without wisdom, obedience without discernment, shame without integration. This is not guidance, it is neglect. One might even call it a missing of the mark, not as moral failure, but as misalignment. And yet, instead of recalibrating, many double down. They insist the misfire is fidelity. To tell another they are sinning is rarely an invitation. It is more often a declaration of incompatibility. You are not aligned with what I believe. It offers no refuge, no bridge, no place to rest. To dismantle someone's meaning structure without offering a softer ground upon which to stand is not compassion. It is violence of a subtle kind. And yet, whenever there is an opportunity to help, to truly help, it matters. Not because opportunities are scarce, but because help is reciprocal. To lift another is to lighten oneself, not metaphorically, but actually, because separation was always a perceptual error. We were never divided, only looking through dirty windows. The target has always been alignment, not alignment with doctrine, but alignment with being. Strip away personality, role, history, and story. What remains? The presence that animates, that perceives, that knows. That presence which breathes the breath, beats the heart, blinks the eyes. The eyes through which one sees the sacred are the same eyes through which the sacred beholds itself. This realization unsettles the ego, not because it diminishes the self, but because it relativizes it. In Greek, ego means I. problem arises when the provisional self mistakes itself for the totality, or when it recoils at the suggestion that the I it guards is not the deepest stratum of identity. The nervous system plays its part here. When threatened, ideologically, existentially, it diverts energy from reflection to reaction, from curiosity to defense. Fear reasserts itself as arbiter. And this is not moral failure, it is biology. But biology need not be sovereign. It is meant to be guided, not enthroned. To dwell in judgment is to place oneself back into that reactive circuit. To scan for error is to energize it. To label what is not understood as malevolent is to amplify one's own disquiet. Words carry force. Imagination shapes perception. Belief organizes experience. If these were truly understood, speech would become careful, almost surgical, precise without cruelty, clear without aggression. How strange, then, to enthrone fear as the highest authority. You will place no other gods before me, and yet fear is often crowned without question. If the animating intelligence of reality is singular, boundless, and indivisible, then what are these rival powers we imagine? Are they not projections, fragmentations of the same source, misconstrued through the lens of anxiety? Attempts to gender the infinite, to reduce it to form or temperament, only underscore the limitation of the frame. If the ground of being is anything less than infinite patience, infinite mercy, infinite understanding, infinite love, then it has been made in the image of fear, not truth. Rigid literalism has always been brittle. Even ancient wisdom warned against it. The stiff tree snaps beneath accumulated weight. The supple one yields and survives. Flexibility is not compromise, it is intelligence. To release unnecessary burden is not betrayal, it is wisdom. There is no need to clench the jaw to transmit peace. Imagine a sunlit meadow, expansive, warm, luminous, and nearby a small room with no windows. Inside, someone shivers. If one bursts in, backlit by brilliance, issuing commands to emerge, the figure appears not as refuge, but as threat. All the other sees is silhouette and glare. Fear projects its own meaning. But leave the door open. Let the warmth speak for itself. It's gentle out here, the silence says. Come when you're ready. Invitation is not urgency. Love does not require coercion, and coercion is not a fruit of faith. It is a signal of its absence. If the animating intelligence of reality is love, would it truly need to lure beings with terror? Or would it simply be trusting recognition to arise in its own time? Attention shapes becoming. What one repeatedly contemplates, one inhabits. To obsess over darkness is to acclimate to it. To fixate on enemies is to perpetuate them inwardly. Non-duality does not mean denial. It means refusing to reify shadows into substances. What if nothing has ever existed outside the whole? What if every being is an unrepeatable articulation of the same source, distinct in expression, inseparable in presence? The tragedy is not difference, but imitation. The frantic effort to become someone else's version of truth, holiness, or worthiness. Such striving is unnatural. It exhausts the spirit. The fountain of youth remains, unmoved, inexhaustible, the eternal declaration of being, without origin or terminus. I am. This is not a slogan. It is the simplest fact of awareness. It requires no defense. And yet, harm does persist. This cannot be denied. Responsibility remains. But responsibility does not mean fear. It means wisdom. It means teaching in ways that enlarge rather than diminish, that expand rather than constrict. For when fear, shame, guilt, and pain are left unexamined, they congeal into identity. And identity, once armored by fear, can mistake anger for righteousness. Consider the difference. Love expands the breath. Fear constricts it. Love allows the body to soften. Fear tightens it. One is spacious, luminous, generative. The other is narrow, vigilant, exhausting. Which bears the signature of truth? Much of the world runs on inherited momentum, on wheels that spin because they always have. Productivity increases, yet rest recedes. Motion replaces meaning. The wheel turns faster, but nowhere new is reached. There is another way, not dramatic, not violent, not performative, a gentle reorientation, a remembering, a laying down of unnecessary armor, a willingness to see without immediately judging, to feel without immediately defending, to listen without preparing a rebuttal. This is not passivity. It is mastery. And if we know what is good for us, we will teach self-mastery rather than how to hide or bite at fear. Rest assured, knowing, no matter where you place your attention, you will always be answered in kind.